it comes to the Grassfields people, these are again part of the Senegala lineage, and they descend from Nchare, particularly the Bamum, who is a descendant of Ale and the Ngara prince Aseji, whose grandfather is known as the first Majara. Nchare was a Tikar, and the first Tikar, Wuten, was a descendant of Mbum. Balakanyasana of Mbum was a descendant of Ngara, and his ancestors were known as Tumageri of the Beriberi people from the Lake Chad region. There's also some oral narratives that relate the ancestors of Balakanyasana to Meroe and even ancient Kush. And if you understand the historical relationship between the Zagawa and the Beriberi and ancient Kush, this makes sense. Njoya had many different literary documents that corroborate with these oral testimonies, particularly Sangam, which is the history and customs of the Bamu people. There are numerous correspondences identified by Theophilo Benga and other African scholars between the Akauku Bamu writing system and Mdududur of classical Africa. And there are also some signs that bear some similarities to the different Sepa or gnomes of classical Africa found in Mbum horns. As stated before, there are numerous commonalities in the architectural tectonics, and Shupamem as well as Madumba are genetically related to ancient Metrem or Egyptian. Ancient DNA analysis, as well as EM2 subclades, validate the Baladi ancestry of the Bamileke, Bamum, and other Grassfields populations. When it comes to the Sawa, they are other Senegala populations, and their lineage starts with Congo, a relative of Muenya and the aforementioned Ale. They are the descendants of the Bambedi lineage of the Ngala Douala. Mbedi is a prominent descendant of Congo in this lineage, and the great scholar Dika Aqua descends from Mbedi's son, Malobi. They are closely related to most West Cameroonian groups, especially on the autosomal level, being that they are Sudanic populations and not necessarily directly related to so-called Bantus. Congo, the brother of Ale, who engendered the Manjara and Wandala lineages, is again one of their major ancestors. The Sawa or Douala language is genetically related to Metrem via the research of the great linguist Gilbert Ngom. There are numerous theological commonalities from harmonious monism and Nyambeism, which is related to the Amen divination system. When it comes to the Efang, the first ancestor is Zanghamada, and he is considered the father of all humans. They place their origin in the Great Lakes region and then Bar El Ghazal, aka the land of Yam. Afrikara is one of his descendants, and this is a possible etymological origin of the term Africa. Nkoafri is the ancestor of all Awondo, Fangafri is the ancestor of all Efang, Okakafri is the ancestor of all Okak, Buluafri is the ancestor of all Bulu, and Ntumuafri is the ancestor of all Ntumu. And these would be the Senegala migrants that settled in Cameroon, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea. And for those of you who are familiar, this would be the so-called Beti, Efang, and Yaoundé populations of contemporary Cameroon. And they descend from Congo on the Ngala Douala kings list. And Iwanji is the grandson of Congo via Matadi. And again, these would be the ancestor of the Beti Pahouin populations of Cameroon. Autosomal analysis shows that the Efang are closely related to other Sudanic populations and very, very distant from so-called Bantu populations such as the Mbiaka, as stated before. When it comes to the Mandara, they are the descendants of Ale and the Senegala lineage. Ajara and his descendants started the Manjara lineage. They are related to the Wandala people via Sanda, the sibling of Ajara, and Hamadou Umar is a direct descendant of this lineage. And the Manjara are responsible for complex infrastructural responses to the Ma'afa and the enslavement of African people. The Adulis inscription in Eastern Africa speaks of a movement of a population called the Magara from the East African coast to Central Africa in the vicinity of the Lake Chad Basin. AM13 phylogeny as well as ancient DNA analysis supports these findings and basically affirms that the Mandara and their ancestors, as other neighboring African populations, migrated from the Hapi River Valley, Eastern Africa, into Central and Western Africa.